I cannot say much, but he called us and say if he can go and sparring with me and everything. I say, of course, right? A fighter like me, we always...
Canelo Alvarez is widely recognized as the biggest star in modern boxing. But a deeper question lingers behind that success. What if his dominance is not only the result of elite talent, but also the outcome of a powerful media system shaping the narrative around him? And what if the same system quietly pushed aside the one opponent who could have threatened the entire legacy? Canelo is far more than just another champion. He is a global attraction, a pay-per-view powerhouse, and the financial centerpiece of the sport. When Floyd Mayweather Jr. stepped away from the spotlight, promoters and television networks needed another figure who could carry the business. Canelo was the perfect candidate. He had elite ability, massive market appeal, and a passionate Mexican fan base that supported him everywhere. Soon he became the central figure in boxing's business model. And once a machine starts running on a single engine, no one wants that engine to fail. One of the most powerful tools in sports is narrative control. After Canelo lost to Mayweather early in his career, the storyline quickly shifted. Instead of focusing on the defeat, the message became that he was simply too young and had learned valuable lessons from the experience. The controversial draw in the first fight against Gennady Golovkin followed a similar pattern. The focus moved toward Canelo standing his ground against a larger opponent rather than questioning the scoring. Over time, these narratives built a protective shield that kept his image strong in the eyes of casual fans. In boxing, the conversation after the fight can sometimes matter more than the fight itself. When a protected superstar loses, the role of the media often shifts toward minimizing the damage. When Canelo was defeated by Dmitry Bivol, the reaction quickly framed the result as a brave attempt to chase greatness at a higher weight. Many commentators said he was simply too small for the division and praised Bivol's technical brilliance. The defeat was explained away almost immediately, and the spotlight returned to protecting the star. At the same time, another fighter was gaining momentum in the same weight class. David Benavidez was building an undefeated record with relentless pressure and heavy punch volume. Younger and naturally larger than Canelo, Benavidez presented a stylistic challenge that many analysts believed could be dangerous. Quietly, insiders in gyms and media circles began saying the same thing. His aggressive style might be the exact type Canelo would struggle against, but the fight never materialized. Instead, the public narrative insisted the matchup was too risky from a business standpoint. The message repeated across networks was that Benavidez lacked the popularity or financial value to deserve a mega fight. Over time, the repetition made the claim feel like fact. Benavidez also made mistakes that provided convenient justification. He lost a title on the scale and later faced a suspension that temporarily stalled his momentum. Those issues allowed critics to question his professionalism. Yet when Canelo himself tested positive for clenbuterol in 2018, the explanation quickly became contaminated food and the controversy faded away. One fighter's mistake became a career-defining problem, while the others became a brief headline. Even after Benavidez rebuilt his reputation and continued defeating opponents, the same argument returned again and again. He still needed one more major victory. His resume still required improvement. The standard seemed to shift every time he got closer to the opportunity. A different strategy also appeared. Sometimes a dangerous opponent is avoided by presenting another challenger who appears just as threatening but carries less risk. That is where Jermell Charlo entered the story. The matchup was promoted as a historic clash between two undisputed champions, but one key detail was rarely emphasized. Charlo moved up 2 entire weight divisions for the fight. The result was a famous name in the opposite corner, but not necessarily the most dangerous challenger available. Eventually, Benavidez positioned himself as the mandatory challenger at super middleweight. At that point, the traditional excuses became harder to maintain. Then a new obstacle emerged when Canelo publicly suggested that a fight with Benavidez would require an enormous financial guarantee, reportedly between $150 and $200 million. Such a number placed the fight far beyond realistic negotiations. With no clear path forward, Benavidez made a decision. Rather than wait indefinitely, he moved up to the light heavyweight division in search of new opportunities. The moment he left the weight class, the narrative changed again. Suddenly, the long-avoided fight disappeared from discussion entirely. But cracks have begun appearing in the traditional media structure. Influential voices such as Stephen A. Smith have openly questioned why the matchup never happened. The conversation now extends beyond a single fighter and into the broader issue of how boxing narratives are shaped. A revealing example emerged during a tense exchange between Andre Ward and ESPN analyst Mark Kriegel. Ward challenged the way certain fighters were covered by the media, including Terence Crawford. Crawford built an extraordinary resume, including becoming undisputed champion at 140 pounds, yet he often faced criticism about marketability and competition level. The discussion exposed a pattern many fans had already noticed. Certain fighters receive constant praise while others with similar achievements face skepticism or are overlooked entirely. The rise of online platforms has begun challenging that system. Unlike traditional television coverage, new media platforms have allowed fans to promote fighters based on performance rather than promotional politics. Much of Benavidez's popularity has grown through this grassroots attention, where highlight clips, analysis videos, and fan discussions helped build demand for the fight that never happened. Another turning point came when Canelo signed a 3-fight deal with Premier Boxing Champions. At first, many believed this partnership would finally make the Benavidez fight easier, since both fighters were under the same promotional banner. Instead, the agreement produced other opponents, and the long-anticipated matchup still failed to materialize. Behind the scenes, the stakes were enormous. Protecting Canelo's status meant protecting an entire business ecosystem built around him. A loss to Benavidez would have carried a different meaning than other defeats. Both fighters shared deep connections with Mexican boxing culture, and a victory by Benavidez could have sparked a major shift in fan loyalty. Even the financial data tells an interesting story. Canelo's events consistently generate strong pay-per-view numbers regardless of the opponent. But those figures appear to have reached a stable ceiling. Many analysts believe a clash with Benavidez would have created a truly massive event capable of exceeding that ceiling. Now the landscape is changing again. With Crawford rising to new heights and other stars emerging, the sport faces a power transition. The same media outlets that once ignored Benavidez now find themselves discussing him as a central figure in boxing's future. The broader lesson is clear. Traditional media once held the power to shape nearly every narrative in boxing. They could elevate stars, protect investments, and sideline threats through repetition. Today, that influence is being challenged by fans who follow the sport through independent platforms and demand different matchups. The debate surrounding Canelo and Benavidez represents more than a single fight. It reflects a shifting balance between established media institutions and a growing audience that refuses to accept every storyline without question. And perhaps the most important message for boxing fans is this: the biggest fights in the sport should ultimately be decided by the demand of the audience itself. When fans push strongly enough for a matchup, even the most powerful promotional structures eventually have to respond. For now, the story continues to unfold. The crown in boxing is constantly changing hands, and the next era may already be forming. Whether the long-debated fight ever happens or not, the conversation around it has already changed the way fans view the sport. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into boxing's biggest stories and rivalries. Leave your thoughts in the comments about who you believe truly deserved that showdown and who should rule the sport's next chapter.
Canelo's fight against the two-division smaller Jermel Charlo did between 650,000 and 700,000 buys. His fight against Stanger Berlanga was around 650,000. These are good numbers, but they show a solid full or of what his dedicated fan base will buy. Regardless of the opponent, the media never mentions that this floor is stagnant. They refuse to acknowledge the obvious. A fight with Benavidez is the only fight that could create a true super. What happens now? Canelo has lost his undisputed crown to Terence Crawford. You are watching the old media panic in real time. For a decade, their entire business model was built on one man. Now there is a massive power vacuum, and they are scrambling to decide who to anoint next. Is it Crawford, the new king who is already 37? Is it Gervonta Davis, or is it David Benavidez, the man they spent 5 years burying, who is now the most obvious champion left? They are realizing they buried the one guy they now need the most. The final lesson in all this is that old media is a machine designed to manufacture consent. It builds stars, protects assets, and buries threats for years. They told you what to think. But the rise of Benavidez, fueled almost entirely by new media and fan demand, proves that the machine is breaking. The power is no longer just theirs. Your clicks, your comments, and your demand for the truth are what finally force the narrative to crack. The biggest takeaway is to never let a broadcast team tell you what a big fight is. You tell them. So, there you have it. The burial of David Benavidez wasn't a coincidence. It was a corporate strategy to protect the Golden Goose and his claim to the Mexican fan base. But that strategy has finally failed. The fan-driven new media uprising has created a threat so big, so loud, and so undeniable that even the old media has been forced to listen. The king has lost his crown, and the monster they tried to bury is now in line for the throne. So, that's all from today's video. If you enjoy it, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and ring that bell icon so you never miss our upcoming videos. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section. Stay tuned and we will catch you in the next video.